So as Vipul sort of tunes his instrument, I thought I'll just build context to the session. We're all gathered here in 2023, celebrating the life and work of a poet who roughly lived around 1480 to 1518, I beg your pardon. In his earthly journey, as most of you know, Weaver poet Kabir left a tremendous body of work. His work and poetry, the dohas, are replete with simplicity, but sort of packed with deep, dense meanings, gritty, unguarded allergies, and twirled round a pure form of lyricism. This formidable body of work has lent itself to almost every conceivable form of music. So music has been composed to Kabir's lyrics, or the folk tradition that it was given birth to, Shabad Kirtan, Gurbani, Qawwali, classical music, Kumar Gandharvji's Nirgun Nirbhay, to rock opera, to rock. If most of you would have heard Kabir Cafe and what they've done with the music, to opera. It's this alchemy of the verse and the song that has sort of allowed a centuries of music to be like one ceaseless continuum. Author Vipul has spent several years in this immersive study of the verse and the song. The book, Drunk on Life, is a part of that journey, and we will have a dialogue with him regarding this journey and his writings. Do join me in giving him an applause. So Vipul, one of the apt places to start the journey of this conversation would be, how did Kabir come to you? You said it's in 2008 that in a village in Uttarakhand that you heard Prahlad Singh Tipania ji, one of the foremost Kabir Gaiki style, one of the foremost Gaiki style of Kabir bhajans. Did it come to you seeping slowly, or did it come like a, a force, or bit of both?
Kabir says, Jaan ki aanchi aayi. So it came like a storm and it blew me away. My first introduction to Kabir was in school, class 6. Kaal kare so aaj kare so padhne kar rahe kogi, kabhi karega. And all our teachers loved this doha because it was sounded very moralistic and, tried to scare the kids with it. And of course, then we had to do this sangya and vyakhya and all those things. And of course, that will not draw any kid into Kabir. It depends a lot on how it's taught also. So that didn't make any impression. Then I heard, of course, Kumarji's renditions of Kabir, and I enjoyed them very much. But it didn't penetrate into me as the force that is Kabir. That happened in 2008. I was near Mussoorie. There's a village called Kempty. And I was in Kempty. And I was just staying there. I was trying to write a book. And I saw this strange notice called Kabir Workshop. At that time, it was not very common. Now there are many Kabir festivals and yatras. This sounds very strange. Let me stay for this. So I stayed an additional week. And Prahlad Singh Tipania, who was a folk singer from Malwa, very famous, he came. And on 4 evenings, he sang. And it blew me away because I'd never heard anything like it before. I'd never heard that kind of music before. And I didn't even understand all the words because they're in dialect. So I understood kind of half the words, but just the raw power of the music with the poetry and what he was saying, I felt like, wow, how did I not know this before? I met Shabnam, who was making documentary films on this folk traditions. So through her films, I met more folk singers. Then I started traveling with the Kabir Project team, meeting folk singers in different parts of the country, in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat. And then I realized this is a vast ocean. And people in the cities did not know about it at all. Now it has come a lot more into the cities. People are more aware of this tradition. But it was such a discovery. And that's the first time I would say Kabir entered me. And he has never left.
Lovely. You know, that's true of the Bhakti movement. You know, it gave rise to almost 15, 20 musical forms in almost every part of India. The Gurubani, the Kavali, the Shabad Kirtan, the forms of, because the poetry, I think, was a departure from the Vedic times, where the lyricism, the language was of the common people. So that's lovely. Would you like to sing a song for us?
I would love to.
What would be Kabir without the alchemy of verse and song? So should we do Halki Gadi?
Sure.
Yeah. Halki Gadi, haan.
So this is a song from Malwa, Madhya Pradesh, which I heard from Prahlad ji. And it says, Zara halke gaadi haanko, mere Ram gaadi wale. Take it easy, go slow. What's the rush? That's what he's trying to say. Why are we always rushing? Our minds are always rushing. So, of course, if you're stuck in Bangalore traffic, you're not going anywhere fast. But our minds are still running, you know, even when we're stuck in traffic, our minds are always running. So Kabir is really talking to our minds. Zara dheere dheere gaadi haanko. I'll quickly explain the song because it makes, it's more fun if you understand what he's saying. Gaadi meri rang rangili, paiya hai lal gulal. Haakan wali chhel chabili, baithan wala ram. It's a beautiful body. He's talking about this body, beautiful car, beautiful vehicle, this one. And the driver is a young, impulsive girl. He's talking about her attention, which keeps running everywhere. But the savari, the rider is Ram himself, the witness. Gaadi atki reet mein aur manzil padi hai dur. Dharmi dharmi paar utar gaya aur papi chaknachur. Inevitably, the wheel gets stuck in quicksand, and the destination is still far away. Says only those who follow the path, they make it, and the rest are obliterated. Then he changes the metaphor. Des des ka vaid bulaya laya jadi aur booty. Ya jadi booty tere kaam na aayi jad Ram ke ghar se chhuti. You called many doctors, you tried all kinds of remedies, herbal remedies, Ayurveda, acupuncture, whatever. But nothing works if your connection with that force, with the divine, is gone. Nothing will work. In the end, he says, Bilak bilak kar tiriya rove bichhad gayi meri jodi. Kahe Kabir suno bhai sado, jin jodi tin todi. Whoever brought you together has also rent you apart. It's all this divine play which is unfolding. Can you hear the tambura clearly? ए जी धीरे धीरे रे मना और धीरे सब कुछ हो माली सींचे सौ घड़ा ऋतु आए फल हो. Take it easy, the fruit only comes in season, not before. जरा हल्के गाड़ी हांको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हांको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा हल्के गाड़ी हांको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हांको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. हाँ गाड़ी मेरी रंग रंगीली ने पहिया है लाल गुलाल. या गाड़ी मेरी रंग रंगीली ने पहिया है लाल गुलाल. अरे आंकण वाली छैल छबीली ने बैठन वाला राम भैया हल्के गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. You can clap if you like. हाँ गाड़ी अटकी रेत में और मजल पड़ी है दूर. या गाड़ी अटकी रेत में और मजल पड़ी है दूर. धर्मी धर्मी पार उतर गया ने पापी चकना चूर भैया हल्के गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले. हाँ बिलख बिलख कर तेरी रोवे ने बिछड़ गई रे मेरी जोड़ी. हाँ बिलख बिलख कर तेरी रोवे रोवे बिछड़ गई रे मेरी जोड़ी. अरे कहे कबीर सुनो भाई साधो जिन जोड़ी तिन तोड़ी रे भैया हल्के गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले जरा धीरे धीरे गाड़ी हाको मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले मेरे राम गाड़ी वाले.
Simple lyrics, densely packed, deep meanings.
I also want to just say that Kabir himself did not read or write. So all his tradition is oral. So the song component of Kabir is very important. The heard component of Kabir is very important.
That's true. We'll come to that. Yes. So let's pivot to a moot point. One was, of course, how you came to Kabir. But you know, here we are 500 years later, deliberating upon a poet, the verse belonging to the oral tradition. So each era has sort of added to that. Who really is Kabir? We know that he's a weaver poet. We know that he's a weaver by profession and a poet by vocation. But there is also a reference to Kabir as a philosophy of thought, as a stream of consciousness. What's the golden mean that you bring about in your book of bridging these two concepts and elements about Kabir?
So the first chapter in my book is called Who is Kabir, not Who was Kabir. So there is a historical figure called Kabir who lived in Varanasi in the 15th century by the river Ganga. So there is that figure. He did not read or write. There were no written collections at that time. There were no historical records. There is no biography. Till about 100 years later, the first written records start to come, and the first collections, written collections. So Kabir has primarily been an oral tradition. If 500 years later, we still listen to Kabir songs, and Kabir songs are still alive, it's because people sing these songs, and people listen to these songs. They are not only captured in textbooks. So that, because the tradition is alive, it passes from body to body. It's an embodied tradition. So from one body to another body, from one generation to another generation. And it's, I see it personally like a river. So you know the river when it starts out, and slowly more and more tributaries get added. And by the time it's entering the ocean, it's a vast and powerful stream. So Kabir, I would say, is that historical figure about whom there are many stories, very inspiring figure, very inspiring poetry, but also this powerful stream which has flowed uninterrupted for 500 years, still flows today, where people sing him and listen to him and celebrate him. They don't treat him as some figure up there. They treat Kabir as their friend, someone who speaks to them in their time of need. And when they sing, they say, "Hum bhi to Kabir hain." I too am Kabir. Kabir is not something far away, but Kabir is you. Kabir himself says, "Kabir, Kabir, kya karo? Socho aap sharir. Jo tan khoja apna aapau das Kabir." Why do you keep saying Kabir, Kabir? Why do you keep taking my name? If you look into your own self, then you are Kabir yourself.
True, and I suppose in the historical context, Kabir, the poetry of the Bhakti movement, to which Kabir is such a large part of that segment, also happened because of the Vedic times. You know, while we have the Vedas, the Samaveda is a singing Veda, right? But it was of the few. The rigidity of the meter was such that only few could chant that. It was actually broken down to the nanosecond. Whereas when Viva poet Kabir wrote his verses, the chaupai, the doha, there was a very easy assimilation with the masses. The distance between the singer and the listener sort of faded in the Bhakti movement.
Yeah, that plays a big role because the social structure of the time, because the scripture is in the hands of the mullahs and the pandits. They control the scripture, they control the power. And literacy is not widespread. So you don't have access to the book. You also don't have access to sacred spaces. For the lower castes, they can't go into the temple. They can't go into certain. So Kabir says, you don't need to go into the temple. He himself was a low caste weaver. And he says, God is in your own body. So why, this is the temple. Why do you need to go into the temple? And he also says, you don't need the scripture. He says, "Pothi pad pad jag mua, pandit bhaya na koi. Dhai akhar prem ka, padhe so pandit hoy." Very famous lines. Still resound so powerfully. Reading book after book, the whole world died, went to the dogs. No one became wise. How do you become really wise? How do you become a real pandit? By reading the 4 letters of love. That's all you need. Your body is your temple. Love is your prayer. Can you imagine how democratic a message that is? Because everyone has access to these things. And there is no hierarchy. There is no hierarchy of the body. There is no hierarchy of love. And this democratic message spread like fire among those especially who were deprived. And so Kabir made a lot of enemies in his time. The Pandits and the Mullahs didn't like, क्योंकि धंधा खराब हो रहा था.
So that's a perfect segue to Kabir and love. There's a lovely chapter in Vipul's book which talks about the philosophy of love. And while the poet's works have biting satire, and you wonder whether love is an oxymoron, but actually the biting satire is there to question the lack of love. And he weaves in love into the very ethos of his poems. Do share a bit of the terrain of your chapter on love. Would you like to read or talk? But you must sing the song on love.
Okay, sure. I'll do everything. I'll read a bit, I'll talk a bit, and
I
I'll
think
sing
the audience, I'm just reading your minds, right?
I do concerts where I sing primarily, but this is also a session a little bit about the book. So this book is called Drunk on Love. It's recently come out by HarperCollins. And in this book, I'm tracing the life of Kabir. Who is Kabir? Through legends. The legends around Kabir that have grown up in the folk tradition. How people relate to Kabir. So from birth to death, all the legends of his life. There are stories in the book. And also there are chapters on his vision, his darshan, his philosophy. How does he see the world? How does he understand human nature, the sacred, the divine, and our purpose here? So all these things are part of the book. And there are also translations of some of his most iconic songs. So this chapter that Sadhana just referred to, it's on love. This page number is, once I find it myself, 97. So Kabir, Kabir talks a lot about the nature of the mind. And the mind likes to divide things. It's either or. Mind works in an either or kind of way. So if you talk about love, oh, it's all about feelings, it's all about sentiments, it's nothing serious. Yeah, so love is in one corner, then intellectual or serious stuff is in. But for Kabir, these divisions do not exist. He is very sharp intellectually, he is very sharp critically, he has a very sharp interrogative voice. At the same time, he talks about love. These two things are not divorced. And he also says love is knowledge. Love and knowledge are not two separate things. Knowledge is not somewhere you get from some other source like the university or a book or something. If you get love, then you have knowledge. And if you don't have love, you have nothing. That's what he says. So Kabir could be called a poet of biting social satire. We know about this. He could be called a devotional poet, a bhakti poet. He could be called a poet of death. He talks a lot about death, this reality of life called death. But he is also par excellence a poet of love. Kabir is all these things. You can't pin him down to any one thing. Love forms a cornerstone of Kabir's philosophy and life. Love is the point. The biting social satire is to indicate the lack of love in our social hierarchies and institutions. The devotion to Ram, Hari, Allah, Alak flows from the foundation of love. Death, the kind that Kabir recommends, is love. Love arises with the death of the small, limited ego. So Kabir says, ये तो घर है प्रेम का, खाला का घर नहीं. शीश काट और भूई धरे तब बैठे घर में. This is the house of love. It's not your aunt's house where you'll get tea and cake and a lot of pampering. Serious business. Cut off your head, put it on the floor. Then you may enter the house of love. Small requirement. So this state of love exists beyond the thinking mind, beyond the self that divides things, which thinks it knows. The mechanical mind, the heavy mind, must be given up in order to taste the wine of love. The Sufis and Kabir, they all call love a wine. It's a drink. It's a nectar. You have to drink it. Talking about it doesn't help. So there's a very famous doha of Kabir where he says, दूल्हा दुल्हन मिल गए तो फीकी पड़ी बारात लिखा लिखी की है नहीं और देखा देखी बात लिखा लिखी की है नहीं और देखा देखी बात दूल्हा दुल्हन मिल गए तो फीकी पड़ी बारात. It's not a matter of reading or writing. It's not a matter of talking intellectually. It's a matter of experience. Love is a matter of experience. When the bride and the groom meet in union, then the wedding party is of no significance, right? So do you want to experience union or do you only want to talk about it? Do you want to experience love or do you only want to talk about it? Do you want to experience knowledge in your own self or do you only want to talk about it? So Kabir is challenging all these notions and he's saying experience, your own experience is the most important thing.
So the song on love?
Yes, sir. So this is a very well-known song of Kabir. In this song he says, Haman hai ishq mastana, Haman ko hoshiari kya. Kabir says, I'm drunk on love. Now what have I got to do with being smart, with being clever, with being hip, cool with it, all these things. He's gone beyond all these things. Rahe azad ya jag se, Haman duniya se yari kya. I'm free in this world. What have I got to do with relationships of interest, with calculations? Dunyadari. जो बिछड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हम में, हमन को इंतजारी क्या. Those who are separate from their beloved, they wander from place to place, looking, searching. But my beloved is in me, and I'm not waiting anymore for anyone or anything. I am love. कबीरा इश्क का माता दुई को दूर कर दिल से, जो चलना राह नाजुक है हमन सिर बोझ भारी क्या. Kabir got drunk on love. But how did he get drunk on love? दुई को दूर कर दिल से, by removing the feeling of duality, two-ness from his heart. We know all these dualities, Hindu and Muslim, upper caste and lower caste, India and Pakistan, us and them, you and me, performer and audience, all these male and female, rich and poor, all these divisions, all these separations. By going beyond them, that's when he could taste the wine of love. जो चलना राह नाजुक है, हमन सिर बोझ भारी क्या. It's a very delicate path. Which path? The path of love. Very delicate. So if you want to walk on this path, you have to be light. Can't be heavy. You have to leave all your baggage, all your burden. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, हमन दुनिया से यारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. Can you increase the tambura a little bit? Tambura. जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, जो बिछुड़े हैं प्यारे से भटकते दर बदर फिरते, हमारा यार है हम में, हमारा यार है हम में, हमन को इंतजारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, हमन दुनिया से यारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. If you feel like, please sing along. कबीरा इश्क का माता दुई को दूर कर दिल से, कबीरा इश्क का माता दुई को दूर कर दिल से, जो चलना राह नाजुक है, जो चलना राह नाजुक है, हमन सिर बोझ भारी क्या. Everyone. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या. रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, रहे आजादियाँ जग से, हमन दुनिया से यारी क्या. हमन है इश्क मस्ताना, हमन को होशियारी क्या.
What a beautiful word, Aman. You know, the way Vipul's playing the tambura, it's the folk style where he's stringing it. Those of you who would have heard Dr. Radhika Joshi in the classical music, it just keeps the drone and it's gently strung. So just to give you that the verse of Kabir has lent itself to both forms of music. I'm just going to take a minute. If, you know, the monitors are not working, so I'm not able to keep time. Would someone tell us how much time is left? 12 minutes. Oh, okay. Thank you. One more song. Yeah. So a quick segue to the book and then we'll return back to the song, okay? The session is Drunk on Love. So Vipul, we've delved into, I mean, you did allude to the fact of his gritty lyricism. Let's just, you know, dive a little deeper into, yes, there's love on one side. But in your book, you do bring a very, very towering personality of Kabir as a firebrand. He spoke fiercely, loudly, truthfully, and sort of all those synonyms could be attached to him, right? How did that reflect on his work? And how did it reflect to you when you're receiving it with these, you know, mixed messages?
Yeah, so this aspect of Kabir is also very prominent, where he is very critical of what he sees around him. Because he's talking about love, and love is the most important thing, he sees a lack of love everywhere. And he got into a lot of trouble because he spoke his mind. And as we know, if you speak your mind, you'll get into trouble with power, whatever power happens to be at that time. So he said things like, "Pahan puje hari mile to main pujun pahad. Taase to chakki bhali pees khaye sansar." If just by worshipping a stone you could find God, then let me worship a mountain. It's a bigger stone. Very sarcastic guy. Says a better use of stone is the chakki, the grinding stone, because it produces flour with which people can feed themselves. Then he says, "Kankar patthar lagai ke masjid diyo chunaye, ताचड़ मुल्ला बांग दे क्या बहरा हुआ खुदाए." You build these great mosques and these great temples laying brick upon brick. Now you put loudspeakers on them and you're shouting away. Has God gone deaf? Can't he hear you? In another song he says, "Cheeti ke pag never baaje to bhi sahib sunta hai." If an ant were to wear an anklet, even that would be audible to God. Even your heart is audible to God. What's going on inside your heart? Why do you have to shout? So we know all the loudspeaker bhakti that goes on in our times. So he got into trouble, of course. The remarkable thing about Kabir is he's fearless. So it's very dangerous to speak your mind unless you're fearless, because you'll get into trouble. But somehow his fearlessness carried him through. There are legends that he was for a time banished from Varanasi, and the Emperor Sikandar Lodi at that time, the Pandits and the Mullahs complained to the emperor. So Kabir was persecuted. They tried to put him to death. So all these legends are there in the book. But somehow he survived. He had this fearlessness. Nirbhay nirgun gun re gaunga. I will speak fearlessly. And he could speak fearlessly because he was in the state of love. That is the connection between these two things.
And probably he lived because at the time that he lived, longevity was not, we couldn't take it for granted, whereas he lived for 78 years. Okay, I'm going to take an audience poll. Song or Q&A? That's it.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Okay, let's end with a song. This is a very well-known song of Kabir. Says, "Mohe sun sun aave hansi, pani mein meen piyasi." I lie, I laugh. I laugh. Why? I laugh when I hear that the fish is thirsty in water. We are all immersed in water. We are all immersed in this energy. And still we feel lacking. Still we feel incomplete. That's why he's laughing. Atam gyan bina nar bhatke ko mathura ko kasi. Without self-knowledge, we keep wandering. Someone to Mathura, someone to Kashi, someone to Mecca, someone to Jerusalem, wherever they go. Everyone is wandering. Mirga na bhi kasturi basat hai, ban ban phirat udasi. The fragrance of the musk is in the belly of the deer, the sack of the deer. But it doesn't know that its own belly contains this musk. So it roams around in the forest looking for this fragrance, unaware that it itself carries that fragrance. So in very simple images, Kabir explains all these things. He says, hai hazir ko dur batave. Dur ki baat nirasi. What is present, what is right here, you call it far away. And all talk of far away is useless. All talk of, 10 years later, or next life, or next birth, or whatever, it's useless. It's right now and right here. Kahe Kabir suno bhai sadho, guru bin bharam na jasa. Kabir says, listen seekers, only someone who knows the way can show you the path.
कबीर सुनो
Thank you, Vipul. And you know, the resounding applause of the audience brings to mind that in this day and age, in the carefully crafted hashtag times, a 500-year-old body of work of a poet still resounds. So more power to poetry and the alchemy of the verse and song, and to practitioners like Vipul who spend their time immersed in the study. Thank you for listening.